right, guys, grab your pen and paper. We've got an incredible podcast coming up with my friend David Olds from Easy REI Closing, and we are going to talk all the way from where he got started with his first deal in his local community using an agent, having someone out there looking for him, found the deal in the MLS, all the way to doing 12 years worth of wholesaling, and now today closing over 2,200 deals for other investors in the last few years using all the creative methods or just a regular buy and hold. So stay tuned. This is going to be a great podcast. And at the end, stay tuned to that. We will talk about South Carolina's new anti-wholesaling law legislation and what you can do today to stay in the business. All right. See you there. All right, guys, we are back with the Deal Fighters podcast, and I'm super excited today. We have a good friend of mine, David Olds, that is closing a whole lot of deals, and we're going to talk about where he got started and how now he's helping tons and tons of new and experienced real estate investors. I think those experienced guys are finally coming over to David because it's so much easier to work with his team, but I'll let him fill you in on that. First, David, thanks for being here, and can you just give us a brief intro of who you are and where you are?
Sure, man. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's a big day for me to jump on here with you. So my name is David Olds. I am a full-time real estate investor, and I'm not too far from you over in Chattanooga, Tennessee. But I really got my start in Central Florida, and it was, 22 years ago now. 22 years ago, I bought my first house. It was a foreclosure. Had no idea why I was buying a foreclosure in 2002. Just the house that my realtor showed me. So I didn't really know about any investment strategies at that point, but I did know how to fix up houses, right? I grew up, and my dad and mom, they were very into that. So, and I also worked for a very large hardware chain and dealt with contractors and lumber and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of came into that, just sort of backwards, and bought this house and fixed it up a little bit and sold it 2 years later and made like $50,000. And my realtor says, "Hey, you don't have to pay taxes on this money." I'm like, "Well, that's the greatest thing ever. Why?" And she explained, because you lived in it. It was a homestead. So I'm like, well, let's do this again. And we bought, really, honestly, the typical thing that investors should look for, right? An ugly house in a beautiful neighborhood. And we probably overpaid a little bit, but I bought this house in DeBerry, Florida, and for like almost $200,000. I felt like the seller really got over on me, but we bought it because the other house was sold and I had to move someplace. And we fixed that up over the course of the next 2.5 years and sold it and made a little over $100,000. And then, I was at the airport in Orlando, picking some people up, reading through the bookstore, just picking up books, flipping them down. And the most cliche thing ever, right? I picked up Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that was sort of how we got started. And, I've always said I'm not the smartest person. I'm not the most creative person. But at the end of the book, Kiyosaki gives you some things. Hey, if you want to be in real estate, go find like a meetup or a real estate group or something like that. So, I got on my big computer in, 2005 and web crawler or something like that, and searched and found CFRI.net, which is, the Central Florida Real Estate Investors Network. And just got super involved and, went to all the classes and all the boot camps and did some coaching and got some mentorship and, just tried to absorb and learn just as much stuff as I could. Because back then, Andrew, it wasn't like now. There weren't guys with podcasts just dropping game continuously. Like, you had to pay for everything. Like, you had to, every weekend course, every week-long boot camp, all of it. Like, nothing was free. Like, YouTube didn't even exist back then. So yeah, kind of started that way. But, the interesting thing was my wife and I, we still had regular jobs where we were making really good money. So we were just flipping a couple of houses a year, sort of on the side. And that was cool. I actually tried wholesaling, which is funny because now I'm known for being a nationwide wholesaler. And couldn't make it work back then. And I think reflecting back and looking at it, the reason was because, like, we had great jobs. We didn't need for it to work, right? It didn't, like, if it worked, great. If it didn't, that's okay too. So it just sort of like the marketing was just a lead magnet or what, a lead gen for our rehab houses, which was great. And, just to not go too long, like, everything was good until it wasn't. Until about the middle of 2008, and we bought this house. Let me tell you. You tell me if you think this is a good deal. It's a little 3-bedroom, 2-bath with 2-car garage, kind of standard ranch in Deltona, Florida. Okay, easy, right? Easy. So I bought it for $97,000. It was a probate deal. Okay, The identical model, one block over, 2 blocks down, had just sold for $214.
Sounds good.
You right? Like, deal or no deal, this is a deal. Yeah. So I closed on this thing in, it must have been like July of 2008. And like we had already seen the market was starting to crash. We didn't know how bad it was going to get, but we saw stuff was happening. So I'm like, we were looking for some other markets to either invest in or relocate to. And we looked at a bunch and we ended up on Chattanooga. But so working on this house back in those days, I was younger, more energy. I was skinnier and I'm, scraping popcorn. I'm doing all the things. I was doing all the work myself. And I finished the house in like November, maybe early November, called my realtor and she's like, hey, let's not put it on the market until January. I said, oh, okay, well, that makes sense because nobody buys a house at Christmas time. Great. So at the beginning of January, like January 3rd comes along, I have her to the house and she's like, hey, this place looks great. I'm like, I know. She's like, you did a good job. I'm like, yeah, I know. I said, what do you think we could sell this thing for? Because I'm like 225, 240, like, what are we going to do? Because we've been on this historic just rocket ship for like 6 years. And she's like, well, and then she pulls out this notebook, dude. This is before Google and Facebook, like everything, they realtors, no iPads, they're still running around with notebooks. And she starts flipping through and showing me houses that have sold. This one 97, this one 120, this one 130. And I'm like, Shayna, 1 block over, 2 blocks down, 214. She goes, yeah, that was then. Yeah. I'm like, that was then? You're kidding me. That was 6 months ago. Wow. She's like, yeah, well, the market changed. So it tickles me when, people are like, the market is crashing. We're having this big, crash or whatever. Like, people have been all over Facebook and social media the last couple of years. I'm like, dude, you guys have no idea what a crash is. Yeah. 25% of the value was lost overnight. So what happens is I said, well, I did the dumbest thing ever, right? As a because I still consider myself at that point, like still a new investor, right? I said, well, my house is better than those. But I can't even say with a straight face anymore because I'm looking at these pictures and there were foreclosures. Like people literally had just walked out and left in the middle of the night. Yeah. And, it's funny, for so many years, we'd been taught how to market to pre-foreclosures, but it never dawned on anybody, oh my God, what's the bank going to do with all these properties when they get them back? I'll tell you what they did. They flooded the market. So the price just plummeted. All right. So that's what I was up against. So I thought I was the most magnanimous guy ever. I'm like, I'll sell it for $155. She's like, the listing broker, right? So she doesn't care. She's like, I'm just going to put my sign in the yard and I'm out. I'm off to the next thing. And she's like, okay. So that was January. Not a call, not a showing, nothing for a month. Like I wasn't even in the ballpark. Yeah. I'm like, okay. And also, 10% unemployment or whatever it got to, whatever crate. Nobody was buying houses. Like it was the worst time ever to put a house on the market. So February, I call her. I'm like, hey, I really got to sell this house. I'd already given my job notice. I decided I was going back and forth to Chattanooga. I'm like, what are we going to do? I'm like, what's the number? She's like, I don't know, like maybe 139. I'm like, you had just told me it was like in the 140s a month ago. And she's like, well, that was then. I kept hearing that was then. So again, I'm like, I'll drop it 10,000, but that's it. It'll sell. It's beautiful. It looks great. Like a couple of calls, 0 showings. So now we're into March and I'm like, my God, I have to move here pretty quick because I've told my job I'm leaving. They've made plans. So I drop it to, I don't know, like 142 or something. Like this has got to do it. Still nothing. A couple showings, but no bites. So I'm like, well, I'm screwed. I don't know. What am I going to do? I've got all this money invested in this house. I bought it. I've got a mortgage. I needed this money to move. This was our plan. Yeah. So, luckily I thought back and I'm like, okay, what can we do? You've been to 1 million classes, right? 1 million, 8 years of classes, 6 years, 7 years, whatever it is, however many years of classes I went to. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just sell it on the lease option. It's not what I want to do, but I can get a little bit of money down and at least I have something to move. Because one thing, if you haven't invested yet or haven't done rehabs, one thing I can tell you is it's great to make 30, 40 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand on a rehab. But I'm telling you, nobody saves that money. Let's just all be clear, right? And this is why you can't get wealthy doing flips and wholesales, right? Because nobody is saving this money, right? I don't give the 1 out of 1,000 people is putting 50% of this away into their IRA or something, right? Typically, most people aren't, and that was me. So So I put out a bunch of bandit signs that said, 3-2 Deltona, Florida. Owner will finance $5,000 down. So still took me a little while to find somebody, but I got the $5,000 down, and literally our moving truck was out and her moving truck was in, and I think I was making like $8 on the mortgage with the rent. Like there was no cash flow. It was just get me out of this deal.
Sure.
So, I got no job. My wife had been laid off. She was a purchasing agent for a custom home builder. And we're moving to Chattanooga where we knew no people, zero people, like not like literally, when you see those memes on Facebook where it's like, burn the boats, let's do it.
Yeah, let's go.
Don't do it. It's dumb, right? Don't do it if you're a husband, if you're a father, if you've got, 2 boys and 3 fat dogs. It's the dumbest thing ever. Right. So we drive up to Chattanooga, and I had been going back and forth a little bit. My brother had moved up and he was going to work with us. We had bought a sub-2 house, and we were getting ready to close on this second one. And I don't know if you've done this, right? But you go to a house and you're like, oh, this is pretty good. Like this is gonna be great. And then you don't see it again for like 2 months. And afterwards, you're like, oh, how did I miss all this stuff? So we drive it 577 miles from Orlando to Chattanooga, get here at like 4 o'clock, go to the closing, just barely get stuff, get the keys, go to this house. And Andrew, it's June like 7th or 8th, 6th, it's right in there. And we go to this house. It's in East Lake part of Chattanooga, which is not the best. It's not the best. And it was this house I bought for no money down, sub-2, and it's like a 1900s house, kind of on the side of Missionary Ridge. Nothing is level. It's a little wonky, right? Like the doors don't close. Yeah. It's me, my wife, 2 boys, 3 fat dogs. There's like, it's the worst scene ever. Like I remember getting there, and now it's like 6 o'clock at night. Everybody's just freaking exhausted. Everybody's grumpy. We were too tired to even unload the van, so we just popped it open, pulled out like 2 mattresses, threw them on the ground. I don't even know if we put sheets on them. So it's this 1900s house, man. No air conditioning. One of the poles is broken, so like half the power in the house isn't working. And I'm like, what in the world did I buy? Like I left this house in Deltona, which was beautiful, right? Fully updated, new kitchen, new everything, for this piece of crap. Or, dude, I'm going to tell you, like, that was the worst night ever. Laying there on that mattress, I got this little oscillating fan going. Our 2 kids were in high school still. Again, the dogs are panting. My wife's like, And, dude, cried myself to sleep that night. Like, it was just terrible. Because I'm like, what have I done? Like, what on earth why did I do this? This is the burn the boats thing, dumbest thing ever. Yeah. But woke up the next day and said, okay, we got to figure this out. Like, we're going to figure this out right now. And, went out and did the only thing I knew how to do. I went out and bought a bunch of blank bandit signs and started writing, we buy houses, we buy houses, we buy houses. Hundreds of them, man. We were putting them out continuously. And we ended up doing, I think, over 30 deals that very first year because we were just so focused. Like, it was the only thing we could do, right? I had no real job, like $5,000, man. That's it. It doesn't go that far. And part of that paid for our closing and the trust doc and all that stuff. So, like, had to make it work. And we got our deal within 2 weeks, I think, was our first deal.
Well, let me, I'm going to stop you right there because I got to go back to where you started when you said wholesaling didn't work for you the first time. Mm-hmm. And I think this is so important. And we're going to get into wholesaling today in today's market here in a second, but I got to make sure everyone's listening to this. And, if you have a pen and paper, take down some notes because David's giving you some gold right here of just pure experience share that, like you said, back then, kind of when I got started too, there was no YouTube, podcasts, all these experience shares that you're getting right now, they weren't available for us. So we got to make all the mistakes, right? We got to go and do it ourselves and crash and burn once or twice. But you tried to start wholesaling while you had W-2 jobs.
Yeah.
And you made the point to say that it didn't work, and I think you figured out kind of why, but you were comfortable. It didn't have to work. Wholesaling is hard. It's a hard job. I mean, it is not.
It's a hustle.
It is a hustle. And if you have comfort, if you already got the W-2, you got income coming, it's really hard to mentally say, I'm going to work my butt off to do these wholesale deals. It's the folks that are like you were in Chattanooga, sleeping on the floor with your back against the wall. that's where we see wholesalers just pop out and shine and do 30 deals the first year, because you have nowhere else to turn. Comfort is gone.
It's desperation. Like
it's desperation. You have to get it done. And whether or not you are back against the wall, that's the mentality you have to be successful in wholesaling. It is a hard job. It can be done. Anybody can do it, but you have to mentally be ready for it. So I sometimes YouTube, Instagram, all these things online make it seem a little too glamorous. And I have to break people's heart a little bit. We talk to our local community and we help people, we coach people, teach them how to go find deals. And a lot of folks come to me and say, I want to be a wholesaler. And I say, why? They're like, well, I want to get deals. I want to make money. I'm like, but you have a job. You make 60, 70, 150 grand a year. Do you really want to hustle this hard when you can just, buy the deals from an agent, another wholesaler, let them do the hard work? So I just had to break that down for that.
I think that's an amazing point. And, people ask us, why were we successful? And I was a 12-year, we shut down our wholesale company just about a year ago for the new one. But I'm a 12-year wholesaler. I'm a lifer. I actually really do love it. But, the reason that we were successful is one, I had a wife and 2 boys and 3 fat dogs. Those kids needed shoes to go to school. We needed food. You've got to make it work. And, for me, the minute my feet hit the ground, wholesaling was the first thing I thought about in the morning. Wholesaling was the thing I did all day, driving for dollars, putting out signs, whatever it was. And it was the very last thing I laid in bed about thinking of at night, right? We had a plan. We went out every Friday and we put out at least 100 bandit signs every single Friday. Didn't matter if it was rain, sleet, snow, whatever. We did the thing. And there's just there's a level of commitment and probably insanity, right? And being too dumb to quit, right? One thing about a lot of entrepreneurs that I've noticed from just all the years of doing this is we're all a little bit broken. We're all a little bit messed up in the head. People are like, I want to be just like you. I'm like, you probably don't. Because the level of focus that it takes to do this is, it's not superhuman. There's nothing, everybody can do it. I'm not here to say, trust me, there are people way dumber than me that make a lot more money. They just follow the pattern because they have a good coach like you. But you just got to be committed to it.
100%. And one more thing I want to jump back to from your story, because in the Deal Fighters community and in how we teach people to get started, we do like to break down some of those misconceptions that come out online, which is that the deals are everywhere else except for where I live. There's none where I live. I can't find one. Dude, your first deal, go back. You said it was in your neighborhood, in your hometown, and an agent brought it to you, right? Was it on the MLS?
Yeah. The very first house we moved into it and lived in it. Yeah, it was just an MLS deal. But to your point, I can't tell you how many times I've been in the shower or just on a plane or something. I'll be like, man, we bought all the houses. There's no more. Which is the most ridiculous thing ever, right? Or oh geez, there's just no buyers for this deal. There's just no buyers. We've talked to everybody, and that's the biggest bunch of nonsense ever, right? It just is. There are plenty of people, and let's be clear what our job is as investors. Our job is to help people, right? I think when you approach it from that point of view, I had somebody, a marketing guy. I was at a marketing evening class one time in Orlando, and he's like, "Listen, if we get up on the top of this building with a good slingshot and a bag of marbles, and we just start shooting marbles in a circle, we will hit somebody's house tonight, and that person is losing sleep over this property, right? Because maybe somebody passed away, or it's a foreclosure, or they got to get their kid out of jail, right? 1,700 deals later, I've heard every story that there is, right? But there is somebody out there that is losing sleep tonight, and that's our job. We're not out there to help everybody, right? Yeah. We're out there to help the people who, have a problem today and nobody else can solve it. That's our job as investors.
Oh, I love that. You're speaking our language. I mean, that's where this whole wholesaling thing has come from, and we're going to talk about what does that mean. But the industry of wholesaling, where we go straight to the seller, straight to the owner, property owner and seller, and solve that problem. Why did this become profitable? Why has this gone across the country? It's because no one else was helping these owners, these sellers, these these families in sometimes desperate, but not always desperate, but just particular situations that need extra work. And let's be frank, and any of the real estate agents out there listening, I'm sure that this isn't you, but agents were lazy and they just haven't wanted to learn how to do this or take the extra steps to help these sellers and property owners. So wholesalers, deal finders, property finders have stepped in and made businesses out of it. Now, here we are. Maybe we'll transition, David, into South Carolina's no wholesaling law, where, of course, and we won't get into the politics of it all, but the real estate agents have helped craft this law that says you can't wholesale. And now there is going to be this gap in the marketplace is going to be created again. And so,
this was bad for consumers. It's a problem for consumers. Having to do a job, but the problem with investors is realtors is the way that they get paid. They get paid 3%, right? And that's fine, right? I'm not here to knock their system. They designed it, they can have it. But what investors could do is we can go in and get that, help somebody with that $25,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $80,000 house, where an agent's like, man, I ain't doing that for $250. Like, I'm just not doing it, right? And not only that, right? Those are typically the houses with the biggest problems, right?
Right.
Because our job as investors is to help people. So what do? We go out and target, people with a lot of problems, with a lot of distress, right? So death, divorce, taxes, probate, bad tenant, right? Kids in jail, like all of those things. So the more problems there are, the more problems we can solve, the deeper the discount we can get, right? And then that's how we get paid. So we have a different business model than agents. But to say that we are stealing their business is nonsense, right? Like there are 6 million agents or whatever. There are far more agents than wholesalers out there, and they do a far better job marketing and all that stuff. But just not everybody wants that solution. I've had realtors call me and say, hey, will you buy this house? A good friend of mine. And I went down to Lafayette, Georgia, and it was a house that was a hoarder house. And I said, his name was Mark. He's passed away now. I'm like, well, Mark, why wouldn't you just list it? This is a pretty nice brick house. So it's granted terrible smelling and full of stuff. Yeah. And he said, well, she doesn't want her neighbors to see pictures and she doesn't want her neighbors to walk through. Great. No problem. I'll buy it. Right. Like, I mean, it was a deal. Like we weren't, we didn't overpay or anything, but we did solve that problem on that day for that person. And that's what investors do.
Yeah. And so I do believe that this is going to create that void, that it's bad for consumers. It's going to create less competition. It may be better for investors. So we'll see. I'm going to tell you where they'll do in the business. So you're going to, let's talk about how investors that used to be called a wholesaler, now we're deal finders. Yeah. How can they still do the business? Are you still doing this here in South Carolina? Well, let's tell people what your business is. We kind of skipped over that.
That's okay. Yeah, so Easy REI Closings, we are the nation's largest transaction coordination company. So we realized a couple of years ago that there was just there was a big gap in investing world, right? So lots of education on marketing and on acquisitions, but no education at all on the dispositions process. And that's sort of where I got my start as a coach, teaching people how to build out their dispo teams. And I did a lot of that. I traveled all over the country and worked with some of the biggest teams in the country, building out those systems and processes for them. Because that's what I did in my business. I had a partner way back in the day, and he handled acquisitions, and I did the backside. So within that, though, I also got very good at dealing with title companies, right? Again, I've been a full-time wholesaler since June of 2009. So I've been through all of the things, like everything that you're ever going to go through in your business. I've been through all of the problems. So I'm coaching on dispositions, and COVID happens. Everybody shuts down. Some of my big wholesaler friends called me and like, hey, you've still got 3 coordinators. Can you help us do some deals? So we sort of fell backwards into the transactions business. And what we realized is there was nobody that was helping investors get their deals closed. Because again, if you remember, what do? We go out and search out problems, right? Which is great, right? That's how we get these discounts. But what do we say out of the other side of our mouth when we're talking to our buyer? Hey, Mr. Buyer, I'm going to give you clear title and proration of taxes. So sometimes you got to be Knievel to jump the Grand Canyon there to get all of those problems solved. And that is not typically what wholesalers and investors are great at, right? We're typically very yappy. We love to go out and make deals, but we're not typically paperwork-oriented people, right? Not detail-driven folks. So So easy. The short version, Easy REI Closings. What we do is we take you from contract to close. You get that contract, you just hand it over to our team, and they take care of everything and get your deals closed. So so we deal with a lot of South Carolina stuff, and it's been a lot of conversation in our office, and we've had conversations with attorneys all over the country and all the big gurus and all the people. So
So this is, I love that you are local-ish, right? You're really close. Like I've driven back and forth, right, in a day. So it's not that far. But you're really getting hands-on experience to what you and I both kind of agreed before we got on air was South Carolina has figured it out. This law pretty much shuts down the quote wholesale business model.
It's going to take somebody who wants to throw a couple $1 million at it to challenge it. I think they would win. I think there are parts of it they could get taken down. Again, I'm not an attorney and I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn last night, but I just think there's some problems with it. However, until somebody's willing to pony up the money, the law is going to stand, right? That's just how it is. And here's the real fear. If you're like, oh, I don't give a crap, I'm not in South Carolina. Well, let me just explain to you how these things work. Yeah. Lots of states, let me be really clear, lots of states have tried to ban wholesaling, and they've done a crappy job at it. Poorly written bills that you could drive a Mack truck through. Well, South Carolina's got it figured out. So all of these states, and there's a lot of them, 20-something, that have, that don't like investors. And the reason they don't is because some broker got elected to their state assembly or whatever it is, and they are a senator now, and now they got a little bit of power, and they're going to exact their revenge on us because, we may be Republican and Democrat, but let me tell you, those parties do not give a crap about us, right? We are an easy target for a politician, right? The bad investor who takes advantage of little old ladies and steals their equity, right? That's how we're viewed. And here's why, right? Because the great thing about investing in wholesaling, an incredibly low barrier of entry. Andrew, right? Everybody can do it. Fat, tall, skinny, blue, white, purple, doesn't matter, rich, poor, everybody can wholesale because there's a very low barrier of entry. That's the great thing about wholesaling. Let me tell you what the bad thing about wholesaling is. A very low barrier of entry. And then you come in and do all of the wrong things, right? And I've been saying this for years. It was just going to take one person to screw over the wrong person who had some power, or their uncle was a senator, and that was going to be the end. So what's going to happen is this law is just going to get, photocopied right across these states. And the problem that South Carolina is having is going to become nationwide very, very quickly. I would say, and I'm not trying to be the doom and gloom guy because I am not, but 18 to 24 months, this law is going to be active in a dozen states across the country. And then you're going to have a real problem.
Yeah. And so, like I said, you're right here getting hands on, and we're figuring out how we could still be investors. And we are running the same circles of people that are helping solve this issue. And you've talked to a couple of the same attorneys here in town. We know that the best way to be an investor, and I can tell you this from our experiences, when we were wholesaling, meaning we never owned title, we never owned we just assigned properties. We were getting about a little over $12,000 per deal assignment. That was our income. When we started 2 years ago, we saw this law coming, so we pivoted a little early. When we started taking title, ownership through creative finance, installment method is one of them, or just buying it using some private lenders. We started buying them and then selling them, whether to another investor or to a homeowner.
Yeah,
we literally doubled the income. Right. So we went from 12 to 24.
Yep.
That's what true investing is, right? That's what being an investor is. Wholesaling is a hustle. It's a job. When we are able to actually own it, then we can capture more of the upside, and of course we can flip it or whatever. So that's where we're kind of going with our students and our community.
Yeah.
And you've talked to a couple of the attorneys, and Gary's the one I'm thinking of, doing installments and stuff like that. But you used to work with how many? Give me a guess of how many attorneys in South Carolina have you?
Oh, 24. I mean, over the years, we worked with a lot of them, and a lot of companies that are even title companies that are outside the state who are licensed there. Like, we've closed a lot of deals in South Carolina, and it is rapidly whittling. Like,
yes,
A lot of guys, half of them probably right out of the gate said, nope, we're not going to do this anymore. It's too risky. Okay, great. And, because I own 2 title companies now, I want to be really clear. Like, the title business is about risk, right? It's an insurance company. Do not be confused, right? These guys, me included, we are not going to put our businesses and our licenses on the line to close your $12,000 deal, right? We're just not. I mean, nobody's going to do that for you. And I get so tired of seeing, just make the title company do it. You know what? Yeah, let's put your $500,000 that you've invested in this business on the line, right? So that doesn't happen. But I think you're exactly right. We're going to have to close on these deals. So 2 things. One, I feel like we're going back in time, back to more old school, like we're going to actually close on deals. Now, the trepidation there for new investors is, do I have funding? Do I have credit? Do I have all that stuff, right? So I definitely know some major players who are raising millions of dollars to roll into South Carolina because the competition's gone. So this is why it's bad for consumers, because there's not going to be 5 people making you an offer. There's going to be 1, maybe 2. Yeah. And their offers are going to be low. Man, this is not helping the little old lady who needs the most money so she can get into her nursing home, because now they have higher costs, right? There's cost of that money. There's the cost of doing a double closing. There's, the cost of just running that type of business because it is a different business model. And they do see that they're going to make a lot of money, right? So this is going to wean the field. So opportunities here. Is there opportunities? 100%. One thing about investors is we're very light on our feet and we can pivot very quickly, much faster than any state ever can. So, are there a way to do this where you can make money? Oh, yes. Yes. And there are going to be some lenders who come out of the woodwork with bridge funding where they're going to give you 30, 60, or 90-day funding. And they're probably going to take part of your deal, as they should, because there's risk in it. Well, for them, business will go on. Life will go on. It's not the end of the world. We're all going to figure it out. Let's just relax, Yeah. The title companies are going to make more money. The realtors are not going to make any more money than they were. They got their own problems. They should just stay to their lane. But we'll figure it out.
Well, yeah. So, we've created some of those solutions. We will fund deals here, or we will partner with people. If you find the deal, we'll go in, we'll partner and buy it together, and we'll, do the deal, right? We're going to help make sure that investors can still operate, sellers still get their deals sold, their problems solved. But for your company, you guys are already ready for this, right? So...
Yeah, we've known I've known this was coming in some version in some state for years. So for our clients, we have funding already lined up for them, transactional funding at less than 1%, rehab funding, we've been ready for this. We knew, the common sense told you this was coming, right? This wasn't like shocking. I actually thought we might have had a little bit longer, but South Carolina, they knocked it out of the park, man. NAR finally got their act together and they figured it out. I don't think this will happen in every single state. So I'm not here to say that, but it's going to happen in a lot. Like there are a lot of states who just, for whatever reason, don't like wholesalers. And, my buddy Jerry Norton, he has been a big proponent of us having like some type of, association where we can have people who lobby for us, right? Because this is the problem, right? There was nobody making the argument for our side in South Carolina. This is it, right? So all you guys that don't want to give Jerry $50 a year, great. This is going to continue to happen, right? Because there are a lot of people on there yapping their gums about, well, we're not going to pay to be a part of something like this. Great. Well, then we're really easy to pick off as a bunch of individual, businesses, right? There's a reason why the NRA and the Teachers Union and NAR and, the Airline Pilots Association, right? Like why these people are so powerful, because they have somebody in the States and in Washington making the argument for them that, hey, we actually do go out there and help people.
Yeah. Yeah. And we don't have a voice to kind of stand up on that. So
it aggravates me.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's tough. And so we got to go with what we have. The great thing is, like you said, this business is open to everybody and it's still available. If you are willing to get connected, guys, if you forgot to tell you about this earlier, but you can watch this video and we have the links for this on YouTube. So you can actually reach out to David and we'll put all his contact info in there. But if you get connected to people like him, get connected to your local meetup, of course, it's how you got started as well. We have one in South Carolina where we meet just about every week. And there's going to be one near you. So get connected with other investors. You may not be able to lobby the state legislator, but you will be able to figure out what's happening in the marketplace and figure out how you can do this business locally in your market. Okay, so get connected. What we do with the Deal Finders Club is have connection opportunities, but also have an opportunity to learn. So you're looking for opportunities to learn this business, learn how to do whether wholesaling, flipping, buy and holds, the BRRRR, whatever that is. Learn the process, guys. Don't go out there trying to do this from something you saw on YouTube. Like, get the education, learn the specific steps to do the business, and then you can build from there. So I want to make sure that you guys know that you can still do this. And it's like we're adding barriers. It's like we're making it hard. And this is weird, David, because we've all heard it on YouTube and TikTok. Oh, this is so easy. Start with the money down, blah, blah, blah. But if this is a business and you're buying hundreds of thousands of dollars of real estate and building $1 million wealth, it's okay to learn a little bit. It's okay to invest a little bit of money to get started in the business, right? So you guys just be prepared. Build a business, invest your time, invest your energy and some money, and you can do this, and you will be leaps and bounds.
I can't agree with you more. And, one of the reasons that we were so successful when we did finally hit Chattanooga is I had spent time, at the REIA, in those meetings, in groups, going to the classes and building that kind of tribe around me of, people who I saw them every day being successful. So I had no doubt that wholesaling worked, right? I hope, or rehabbing or, buying apartment complexes, storage units, like it all works. But, trying to learn it from a bunch of disjointed YouTube videos is challenging, right? Like, we gave a lot of great information here, but it's probably not enough, right? Like, we don't have 8 hours to sit here and break down every single step for you. So yeah, you're going to have to make an investment. Like, if you want to do this, right? You can make it a hobby and do maybe one deal a year and just kind of muddle your way through, but that's not going to be a business, right? So you need to get tapped into it, Andrew and his group, or somebody out there who can just accelerate your learning curve, right? Because here's the thing, again, we're dealing with real people, right? So we don't want to be putting stuff under contract and just canceling contracts, right? When we contract a property as an investor, like, that person is making decisions. I'm going to pack my stuff. I'm going to move. I'm going to do all of these things. So to come through and cancel it at the end, again, these are the problems with investors. So yeah, I can't agree with you more. You've got to get some education. That is what's going to propel you, make you the 10 or 15% who really become successful.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Hey, we're going to wrap it up here. This has been Deal Finders Club podcast. You can find more at dealfindersclub.com. If you do want to learn more, learn the next steps, reach out to us. We can guide you, point you in the right direction. Maybe there's a class for you. Maybe there's a study program or a group, like a coaching program or something like that. Let us know where you are. We can point you in the right direction. David, how should people find out about your company, your business?
We'll drop a link below, but yeah, it's easy. REI Closings. Just let us know that you heard of us through Andrew. And then on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, we drop just a ton of content. And I don't know, I'm like old. Is it a handle? Whatever it is. It's David Olds REI. So David Olds is OLDS, just like the car, REI for real estate investor. You can find me on all the platforms there, and shoot me a message if there's something I could do, you want to chat, or something we can help you with. I'd love to help you.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, David. This has been incredible. And like you said, we don't have 8 hours here, but I know this has been valuable. And guys, if you did get value out of this, make sure you leave a comment, like it, share it. And if you have questions, please put them in. We will answer your questions, and we can certainly reach out to you if you need something. So until next time, we'll see you on the podcast. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the REI Deal Finders podcast. You can find out more and apply to be a part of the REI Deal Finder community at reidealfinders.club.